Movies with Ron.
Hell yeah, motherfucker.
Movies with Ron.
Hey!
Yeah.
What was that?
That was the new theme song, man.
Hell yeah.
You like that?
I love it.
Who are those singers, Ron?
Those singers were our good friends of the show, Carrie and Kenneth. All right?
Carrie and Kenneth.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Oh, man.
Carrie and Kenneth, thank you so much.
Yeah, you sound good. And so do you, Rick, for playing the guitar on that one.
Yeah.
Took a hot minute, but we got it.
Yeah, I like it.
Nice little explosion there at the end, too.
Oh, yeah. I had to go down to Fort Bragg, and they had to detonate a mortar. I had to take the sampler with me.
Yeah?
Oh, jeez. All right, guys. Welcome to the show. I'm Chris, your MC for the time being. Across from me is Mr. Rick. He's our sound engineer.
Hello.
And next to him, Ron.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Hey, can I give a shout out? All right, there's this guy on Reddit. His username is Blackie Saber Jedi, and he's from Radio Oceania Podcast Network. He's got a couple podcasts. One of them's called Rings of Saturn, which is kind of a geeky pop culture kind of podcast I'm getting the vibe from. He's also got one called The Black Jedi, which he talks about Star Wars and stuff. This just happened today, so I haven't listened to him. But if you guys are looking for a new podcast to listen to, rewind it and check those out. He told us, I listened to your take on Suicide Squad. I need to join that preferred club at the movies to skip long lines and get free popcorn refills. LOL. If you did the whole show as Bane, I would not have minded at all. You're pretty good. All in all.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. All in all, a good show. That's it.
All right. Thanks, man.
Blackie Saber Jedi, thanks.
Thanks, buddy.
Okay. For all you guys listening out there, and girls, if you're
Don't
using,
forget the girls.
if you're listening from an iPhone or iTunes, something like that, try and leave us a rating or review. That's kind of our currency right now.
Give us currency.
Also, this podcast is explicit, so if you're underage, if there's no parental settings on your phone, don't tell your parents.
What the fuck? Easy there, killer.
Sorry. A little too close.
All right. Also, I made a Movies with Ron Instagram. All right, because I've also been, at the beginning, I started recommending movies to people. So I started putting those on the Instagram, also like episode announcements. So if you got Instagram, it's Movies with Ron. Try and follow us. Check us out. We're also on Facebook, Movies with Ron. We got some followers on Instagram already.
All right.
Yeah. You want to know who they are?
Yes.
One's called Free Us Follower. The other one is Get Followers Now.
Nice.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, it still excites me. All right. Speaking of recommending movies, you know what I saw recently? Which I think other people should try and check out?
What?
Sherlock Holmes' Smarter Brother.
Yeah, it's actually called The Adventure of Sherlock Holmes' Smarter Brother.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
But in lieu of recent events regarding Gene Wilder.
Oh,
Yeah, he
rest
passed-
in peace,
yeah.
Gene Wilder.
Yeah, he passed away recently. And for you young listeners out there, he was the original Willy Wonka, and he will be sadly missed.
Oh, absolutely.
So yeah, The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes' Smarter Brother. You know, the funniest joke, in my opinion, the funniest joke in that movie happens within the first 2 minutes.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's because Gene Wilder plays his younger brother, Sherlock Holmes, but it opens with the original Sherlock Holmes, sitting across from Watson, and there's this evil-looking guy outside their door looking in through the keyhole. And inside, Holmes and Watson, they're just having this normal conversation. They're like English guys, fucking talking and shit. But Sherlock Holmes has these, they're like note cards sitting in his lap, and he shows Watson the first card, and it says, 6-foot-tall killer looking at us through the keyhole. And Watson is like,
Holy Jesus Christ!
and then fucking Holmes holds up the second note card, and it says, "Act normal." I don't know. I don't know. I love that one.
Yeah, that was funny.
The movie is almost a musical,
I
but
know.
it's not a musical. All the songs that happen throughout it, they're part of the plot.
Oh, yeah.
They happen naturally. That's what I love about it.
I know, man.
And the movie's so like naturally gloomy
Yeah.
and funny at the same time.
Why don't we all drink some very sexy wine?
They say that like 20 times in that movie.
I know. Why don't we all shut your mouth?
Dom DeLuise is fucking brilliant in that movie.
Hell yeah. Lest we forget Marty Feldman.
Yeah, he's always great.
Yeah, he's amazing. He was Igor in Young Frankenstein, which also starred Gene Wilder.
That's also the only thing I've seen outside of my own experience that has a joke about when a guy gets hit in the balls and he only feels it like 10 seconds later. The killer comes crashing down on the stage. He was cutting a big thing to fall on the actress that's performing.
Yeah.
He's on top of the thing, so he cuts it and he goes right down with it, and it hits him in the balls, right? And everyone's like, "Oh, what the fuck?" And he gets off the thing and he brandishes the knife that he was using to cut the rope, and he's threatening the actress, and she's like, "Oh my God!" And then he's like, "Ooh!" All right, so we've got a new thing for you guys.
Yeah.
We're going to play a little game after Ron recaps the movie.
I want to play a game.
I found this thing on Reddit. I can't take credit for it, but I still want to play it. All right, here are the rules. You pick any two movies featuring the same actor. Both of those movies are now in the same reality. What happened to get the actor from movie A to movie B? All right.
Hell yeah. What's the name of this game?
I was thinking, From Here to There.
Oh, were you thinking that?
Oh, you told me. You asked the fucking question, though.
Damn right.
All right. I should give the listeners an example. We're going to play it at the end of the recap, but I want you guys to know what's going to be cooking. And if you guys have an idea that maybe we should share, if you want to have a good From Here to There, send us an email at movieswithron@gmail.com, or send us a message on the Facebook page or the Twitter or Instagram. Jesus.
Hell yeah, guys. Sound off.
Okay. Here's an example. Edward Norton undergoes psychoactive therapy to get the Hulk under control.
Uh-huh.
So that's the Incredible Hulk movie.
Oh, yeah.
It's movie A. After many painful years, he manages to successfully get one split personality under control, only to release another personality, Tyler Durden.
Ooh.
And Fight Club would be movie B. Yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
That's a short one, but so you guys get the idea.
All right. Are we all going to do it? Or just one, or what?
Yeah.
I'm game.
Yeah.
I'll do it.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's each do one.
All right. All three of us, let's do it. Yeah. All right, Ron, what'd you go see?
I went to see The Disappointments Room.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Know anything about it?
I watched the trailer.
What'd you think?
I didn't know what to think because they don't show this room that they're talking about.
Well, yeah.
But it seems scary.
Yeah, it was a horror movie.
Okay.
Not a bad one, I might add. You know who wrote it?
Who?
Guy named Wentworth Miller. You know that name?
Oh, yeah. You know what else he wrote? He wrote a good movie called... Fuck.
I don't think I've seen that one.
It's called Stoker. That was a good movie.
Yeah?
Yeah.
He's actually the actor who played the younger brother in that show Prison Break.
Right. So he's taking a turn.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Apparently he played Chris Redfield in Resident Evil Afterlife.
We will never speak of those movies.
I don't know. There might be one coming up.
You know, we were talking about making... I was talking about making an unofficial Bastard remake.
Uh-huh.
If I start writing it, you want to, like, perform the script?
Yeah, hell yeah.
Unless it's good, then no.
Okay.
All right. Anything happen in the theater?
A little something happened in the theater. It's weird. Okay, so me and Heather, we go into the theater. She had to go to the bathroom, so I'm standing out there by myself. And, I'm looking around for anything unusual that might be happening. And I turn around and no shit, I see this older gentleman shaking this older woman by her shoulders. Like he's like trying to snap some sense into her. But he's not yelling or anything. He's like real close up in her face and he's like talking to her and he's like real quiet, but he's like shaking the shit out of her. And I was like, holy shit, that looks fucking serious. And I like walked over to try to get close so I could hear what he was saying, but he was done by the time I got there. And then they just like gave the person their tickets and walked in. And I was like, man, that guy is a piece of shit. Fucking doing that to his wife, like right there in the fucking theater.
Oh, jeez.
All right, so saw a bunch of horror previews.
Yeah.
Okay. Saw one called Incarnate. Heard about that?
Nope.
Who's that guy? Thomas Jane.
Uh-huh.
He's
Oh,
in it.
yeah.
And he is an exorcist, but he uses science to do it. He's not a priest.
So he's a
like
scientist.
Yeah.
He's Constantine.
But he solves, demon possessions by, putting electrodes onto his head and on the possessed person's head and entering their mind.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, so it's like that old movie Dreamscape.
Yeah.
Or,
I was
what's it
waiting
called?
for
The Cell?
an updated version of that kind of story.
Yeah, and sadly, it looks kind of dumb, which I hate because I love Thomas Jane.
Yeah.
Yeah, but check this shit out. Finally got to see a new updated preview to Blair Witch.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah, man. That fucker's going to be good.
Is it found footage?
I think it's a mix.
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
But yeah, man, looks good. In the preview, it shows them going into the same house at the end and shit. You see all those little handprints, and then one of these guys on this crew is like standing in the corner and shit. And then you hear this other person go like, "Now stand in the corner, don't listen." It's fucking weird. And dude, it looks good. There's this one part where this chick is like crawling through this fucking muddy hole, which is like barely wide enough for her body, so it's all like claustrophobic and shit. That shit looks fucking scary, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's directed by Adam Wingard, who worked on the VHS movies.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
I love those.
He's been making movies for a while now, and he's got a slow start. He also made You're Next. Did you guys ever see that?
Yeah, that was good.
It was all right, but hopefully he's reached an echelon. So I'm excited about what he's going to do now.
Yeah, cool. Saw another Ouija preview. And, okay, remember how I said that Fed Alvarez got on and gave us a message about coming to see his movie?
Yeah.
In front of Don't Breathe?
Yeah.
Well, this time we got another message from a director. And it was Paul Anderson.
That
The
piece of
fucking
shit.
Resident Evil guy.
That fucking
but
bastard.
guess what else? He was not allowed to do his message by himself. Mila Jovovich made him let her in there too. So it's Mila Jovovich and Paul Anderson talking about how great of a time they've had making all of these Resident Evil movies, and our new one is coming out, and just thank you so much for coming to the movies.
Yeah. Can I
was
say
like,
something
what the
to them right
fuck?
now?
Yeah, sure.
All right. You guys suck when you made those movies. You fucking screwed it up. All right. If I met you in person, I would treat you with respect and I'd try to be your friend. But those movies you made, they fucking suck.
Yeah, not good, guys.
That's
Any
pretty-
other previews?
Saw one to Resident Evil. Oh, there's one other, though, that's of note. It's a Halle Berry movie, and it's called Kidnap. And the whole thing is she goes to a theme park with her little boy, and they're playing around, they're playing Marco Polo. So, yeah, she's like walking away from him, and they're playing Marco Polo and shit. Mm-hmm. So immediately, she's a fucking dumbass, okay? But her kid gets kidnapped, and then the whole rest of the movie is her chasing them down.
The kidnappers?
Yeah, because she sees him being dragged into a car that drives off, so she gets in her car. But just before she gets in her car, she drops her fucking cell phone, so she can't call the cops or anything.
Oh, yeah?
So she just like fucking stays on him and shit. And like, yeah, actually looks pretty good.
That sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so the disappointments room. You ready?
Yeah.
Here we go. So we open up with a car driving in the country, and in the car is Kate Beckinsale, okay, her husband, who is played by, don't know, and then the cutest little boy in the world. I don't know his name either. So their parents and their son, and the dad and the son are singing along to a bunch of opera show tunes. I don't fucking know. And they're being all cute. And Kate Beckinsale is looking at them like, oh, you guys are crazy, blah, blah, blah. And a car drives by, and then we see the title card of the movie, The Disappointment Room. Okay, so then it cuts to them fucking driving in this dark-ass rain. And they're having a fight about how the weirdo husband was, like, making them stop over and over at, like, farmers markets to buy all this different, like, produce and shit. Because they were supposed to go and meet the movers at the house. But because he fucked off and did all that stupid shit, they missed him. Mm-hmm. And he's like, oh, listen, come on, just calm down. Just calm down. This is a good move, okay? You know? And she's like, yeah. And he's like, yeah, you believe me, right? And she's like, I guess. And he's like, it's okay. It's a new beginning, all right? We're going to start over. This is awesome. And she's like, okay, yeah, all right, cool. So they finally get to the house in the rain, and they get inside, and they see that the movers have just thrown all their shit around. Okay, and they're like, oh, man, they were supposed to put everything in the right rooms. And the husband's like, yeah, well, fuck it. They didn't. Who gives a shit? So the shit's all around the house and everything, and then the dad and son just start running around having fun. Okay, so Kate starts to wander through the house. And she finds this spiral staircase, which is pretty cool, and it's a good, cinematic object. She's walking up to the stairs, and she sees at the base of the stairs, on either side, there are mirrors, okay? And they're like people-length mirrors. You know, they're really tall. And they go all the way down to the floor. Uh-huh. They're right across from each other, so when you stand in front of one, it like goes back into infinity.
Yeah.
And she's like, can you believe this shit? And the guy's like, yeah, that's fucking weird. And then it cuts to Kate Beckinsale on the floor in the bathroom just crying. And you're like, what? Then it cuts to her, no shit, again, in bed, not being able to sleep. So obviously you know that, there's trouble in paradise. They moved out to get a new beginning for a reason, right?
Yeah. So
she gets out of bed, and she's walking around, and there's water leaking through, like, all these different fucking holes in the roof and shit like that. It's an old mansion. It's not really a mansion, but it's a big, huge house. And she's unpacking stuff, and she pulls out a photo, okay? And in the photo, it's the day they brought their daughter home from the hospital. And you're like, oh, shit. Okay, they had a child that died. So now we know why they needed a new beginning, okay? And why she might be so fucked up.
Okay.
So as she's unpacking stuff, she sees a leak in the chandelier, okay? And it's weird. The water is, like, running down the chain of the chandelier and filling up the fucking middle of it. It's pretty weird looking. And there's just a whole bunch of shots of all this fucking rain. And she goes out to the window. She's looking out in the rain. And then out in the middle of her backyard is this giant fucking black German shepherd fucking sitting in the grass, fucking staring at her. It's pretty scary.
Yeah.
So then we got the next morning. And she's still unpacking in the kitchen. And her husband comes in and he's like, yeah, is there coffee? And she's like, yeah, go ahead, find the coffee maker. And he's like, I just found her. She's like, fuck you. So then she's walking through the house to find her son, to feed him breakfast or whatever. She walks into his room, and he's in there fucking talking to nobody. And he's like, yeah, no, don't worry. She's a good mommy. You'll see. And it's like, oh, shit. And she's like, and Lucas, who the hell are you talking to? And he's like, doesn't say anything. And he's like, don't worry. You'll see. She's a good mommy. You're going to like it here.
Oh, God.
And she's like, Lucas, who the hell are you talking to? And he turns around and he's holding some fucked up looking cat. I think he found a stray cat in the fucking house. So she's like, oh, yeah, okay, that's great. We're getting rid of him. We're going to let him outside. You know, he's like, no. He said he'd protect me. Then the dad walks in and he's like, oh, wow, look at this cat. You know what? We're going to keep it. And Kate Beckinsale is like, fucking what the fuck? And so then it shows the dad and the son giving this cat a bath, which is weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a cat person, so it seems like giving a cat a bath might be dangerous, especially like a fucking stray.
It's usually pretty labor-intensive and painful.
Yeah, that's what I imagine. So then we got Kate, and she's outside, and she's taking photos, okay? So maybe she's a photographer or something, you know? She's looking at the greenhouse, okay? And she looks back at the main house, and it's all like fucking creepy looking and shit. And she's walking through the yard, and it's all like picturesque and gothic, creepy looking. There's weird statues with no heads, and there's this big wrought iron gate. And she's just wandering, she walks over near some bushes, and then this giant fucking beast is moving around in the fucking bushes. Rah, 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 it's fucking growling and shit. And like the bushes are moving, okay? And they're moving big. Like there's something huge in there. And she's like, what the fuck? And then the dad walks out and he's like, hey, Kate, what's going on? And she's like scared shitless, right? And she's like, did you fucking see that? And he's like, no. So, come on, let's go into town. And she's like looking back at the bushes like, oh, shit. So they drive into this little small town that the house is in. And, people are saying, howdy, neighbor, shit like that. And he's like, yeah, see, everybody's pretty friendly. Let's go into this little ice cream parlor. And they go in. And he's like, yeah, see, we don't even have anything like this in New York. And the lady who runs it is like, oh, did you say you're from New York? Blah, blah, blah. You must have bought the old Blacker place. No one's lived there for a very long time. And, it must be a fixer-upper, and I can recommend this guy named Ben, okay? And he's real easy on the eyes. And she's talking to the dad, and she's like, yeah, so you must be, He's like, we're going to do all the work ourselves. And she's like, oh, you must be handy with a hammer. And then Kate steps in. She's like, actually, I am. I'm an architect. I'm going to be doing most of the work. And she looks at the dad, and she's like, well, what do you do? And he's like, I play Xbox.
Really?
I watch her do stuff, Like, yeah, he really does say that. Later on, you find out that he was a businessman in New York, and he's like selling his company or something like that. So he's not a real loafer. He was just fucking around.
Yeah.
So they're leaving, and she's like, good luck with the house. So then it's night, okay? And Kate wakes up alone. There's nobody in bed with her. And she sees her son Lucas standing over by the window. She gets up and she's like, Lucas, what are you doing? And he's like, there's a dog out there. And she's like, what? And he's like, I'm scared. And then she turns to him and you just hear him say, Mommy? And she looks down and his hands are like totally covered in blood. Okay? And then he holds him up to her and she freaks out. And then she looks down at herself and she's totally covered in blood. And then she wakes up in bed from the nightmare that she was just having. Okay? This movie is very full of dreams. Flashbacks, and also visions. Okay? Those three separate things happen multiple times throughout this movie. Fuck. It does get a little bit confusing.
All right.
So bear with me. All right, so she just had that nightmare, so she decides to go into her underwear drawer and sneak out the cigarettes. So she goes outside, and she's sitting down smoking, and she looks down and she sees this, this weird little stone thing, in the grass. And so she uncovers it, and she sees a little kite has been carved into the stone, like it's a grave marker, okay? It's been overgrown. Then she looks over at the house and she sees a light turn on. At the very top, there's like a circular window for the attic, and a light turns on in it. And she's like, what the fuck? And then it fucking turns off. So she goes up that spiral staircase to find out what the hell's going on. She walks into the attic, all right? Door's all creaky and shit, and it's all dark in there, and it's fucking scary looking. But the attic is totally empty, okay? Except for a wardrobe all the way at the end. And the weird thing is, instead of opening the wardrobe to see what's in it, she just immediately starts trying to push it out of the way. There's a wardrobe in here. There must be a secret door. But I guess it does stand to reason. She goes into the attic and, there's no window.
Yeah.
So I guess it does kind of make sense.
Okay.
When she can't push it aside, she opens it up and a whole bunch of fucking bats fly out.
Oh, jeez.
Okay? And it's a pretty good little jump scare. So, in order to make it lighter so she can push it, she's pulling all the drawers and shit out of it and stuff. So then she tries pushing it again, okay? And while she's pushing it, we see behind her this old man standing there. Right fucking behind her over her shoulder. And you're like, is that a painting or is that a fucking ghost? Okay, and the old man is played by Gerald McCraney, who is from an old show when I was a little kid called Simon and Simon.
Yeah.
And he played Major Dad, okay? And for all you 80s movies buffs, he played Bastion's father in The Neverending Story.
For you guys who like Netflix, he played Tusk in House of Cards. He's a good actor.
Oh, yeah, cool. So right then, the husband shows up, and he's like, hey, babe, what are you doing? And then we see that the old man's not there anymore. So he helps her, and they push it aside. And, yep, there's a big old fucking door. Okay? And it's locked. So they're like, oh shit, we can't get in it. And he's like, don't worry, we'll call a locksmith, tomorrow or whatever, blah, blah, blah. Let's go. And then right then we see a shot of the keyhole and somebody is looking out of it. See a fucking eye through it. It's crazy. And she's like, this is really fucking with me because that room is not on the floor plan of the house. And then it cuts to the next day and the dad and the son are playing. And they're outside, in Wolverine costume, and the dad's pretending to be Hulk and shit, and they're fucking around. And Kate, who is an architect, is going over the plans for the renovation of the home. She's making her little schedule and everything. And then she looks in the mail, and she finds in her mail, okay, this envelope, she opens it up, there's a whole bunch of old-timey photos in it and shit. And Gerald McCraney, old man Blacker, is in the photos, okay? And he's in there with his wife and shit, and one of the photos is of a kite flying in the air. It's weird. So then, I guess she's getting ready to cook breakfast or something like that, and she puts something in the oven and then sets the timer, the kitchen timer. And we get a good look at how many minutes she put it on there. 40 minutes, okay? Mm-hmm. So then she's putting shit away, and she's stuffing a bunch of stuff into the... stuffing one of those silverware caddies into the kitchen drawer, and it won't fit in there. It won't fit. Like there's something blocking it. So she reaches into the drawer and pulls out a big box of keys. Okay, old-timey keys.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, fuck yeah. She goes upstairs to the door, tries every one of them, and none of them work. So it's like, wah, wah. And then she's about to walk away from it, and then she stops, and she's like, wait a minute. And then she just feels around on top of the door, the top of the door frame, and finds a fucking key. And it unlocks the door.
Oh, yeah.
So she walks in, and, it's dark in there. She sees the window, and then the door immediately slams fucking shut behind her. And there's no handle. So now she's fucking stuck and locked in there. And as she's in that room, you can hear footsteps walking around her and shit, but there's nobody in there. And it's fucking creepy as shit. And she looks out the window. Then she hears some water sloshing behind her. And she looks, and there's a little drain in the floor. Okay? And she looks down, and she gets visions of this weird woman who's like all crying and sad and shit, and this little girl who was being held in the room, I guess. And then the old man is walking around in the room with Kate Beckinsale, and she's screaming and crying. She's like, "Let me out! Let me out!" She's like fucking going crazy, and she ends up just like sitting there, and she's stuck in there for fucking hours, dude. And it gets dark and shit. And she's just sitting up against the door, and she looks down at the floor, and there's like fucking claw marks on it. Mm-hmm. Like whoever was trapped in there was fucking scratching the floor and shit. So then she gets up, she's walking around again, and you see this little girl behind her. And the girl says, "He doesn't want you." And then the door just opens and lets her out. So she goes downstairs, and the dad and son are inside there playing some other game. There's a movie on TV and shit. And so she starts screaming at him, "Where the fuck were you, asshole? I was locked up there for fucking hours. Somebody locked me in that fucking room." And he's like, "Oh, no. Well, we wouldn't have done that, babe. And there's no one else here." So she's like, "I was fucking screaming, dude.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck's wrong with you?" And he's like, "We didn't hear you, I swear." And the kid's like, "We didn't hear you, Mommy." So she's like wondering what the fuck's happening. And then the little kid goes, "Don't get sick again, Mommy." So it's like, uh-oh. She done gone crazy before. What's going on? And then the timer in the kitchen goes off. Ding! Yeah.
Okay.
So then she's like, what the fuck? All right. So then it's later on in the day. And she's talking with her son. And she's like, yeah, want me to set up your little house? And he's like, yeah. So they're setting up this little doll house or whatever he has. And little mom-son moment. And she's like, "Lucas, I just wanted to tell you, I just wanted to say that I'm sorry, honey. I'm really sorry." He's like, "It's okay, Mommy. Bad things happen. But I just wanted to tell you, maybe sometime I'd like a sister again." And she's like, "Oh, really?" And he's like, "Yeah." Then it cuts to the dad, and he's watching videos on his phone of their baby girl. They were just filming her, and, in her crib and shit like that. Mm-hmm. And then we see the door in the attic, and there's fucking screaming going on behind it. Then it cuts to everybody asleep at night. And there's a kid running around the house. You never really clearly see it, but you're left to assume it's the little girl. Just like dunk, 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 running around. Okay? And Kate wakes up, and she follows the footsteps up to the attic. Up in the attic is old man Blacker, standing there, and he's got his black dog. Okay? He's all stern and shitty looking. And the dog's fucking barking at her and shit like that. And then he like gets up in her ear and he's like, "Do you think that fucking disgusting child came out of my loins rotten? Not a chance in hell." And then she fucking wakes up in bed, okay? And she goes into the bathroom and she's fucking weirded out, you know, and she opens up the medicine cabinet and gets a bottle of pills out. And then she shuts the medicine cabinet. She's looking at herself in the mirror. She's about to take a pill, right? And then she goes, you know what? Fuck it. I'm not taking them. She goes over to the toilet and flushes them, okay? Mm-hmm. And as she's flushing them down the toilet, we see over her shoulder at the mirror behind her. And in the mirror behind her, she's still looking out of it as if she was looking into the mirror, okay? Uh-huh. So she's standing over by the toilet flushing pills, and then we also see her looking at us through the mirror.
Okay.
Okay?
She was imagining that?
She was like remembering flushing the pills, I guess.
Oh.
So there was that fucking mirror weirdness, and then we see her fucking waking up again. Okay?
I don't know what's happening.
I know, right?
Keep going.
So she sees, then she sees a kite flying out the window. And she's like, oh shit, it's that kite from the picture. So she goes outside and she's following it, right? As she's following it, she bumps into this young, blonde, good-looking guy who's like on her property, okay? And she's like, who the fuck are you? What are you doing on my property? And he's like, hey, I'm the good-looking blonde dude that lady from the ice cream shop recommended to you. His name's Ben. He's like, I'm here for the roof repair, you know? And she's like, oh, yeah, okay. And he's fucking coming on to her and shit, and it's all like weird, okay? And she's like, so, should I go ahead and get to work? And she's like, you know what? No, we need to, we need to talk about it first, you know? And he's like, well, why don't we talk about money? And she's like, why don't we talk about the fucking scope of work and everything, okay? And we'll talk about, putting a deadline, okay? And then, if you don't meet that deadline, then you have to pay a penalty back to us for every day that you don't. So she, like, really knows her shit.
Yeah.
Okay? And he's like, oh. And she's like, so why don't you leave and come back in a couple of days after it hasn't been raining, so then we can get up on the roof and see what even has to be done. And he's like, yeah, okay. So then he leaves. But he has met his match.
Is he real?
You know what? By the end of the movie, we do not know.
Okay.
I was just talking about that with Heather. And she was like, oh, no, shit. So Kate's looking through all that crap that came in the mail, and she finds an old newspaper clipping that's talking about old Judge Blacker, okay?
Yeah.
And he had a daughter that died on July 5th. So she freaks out, and she's talking to her husband in bed later, and she's talking about the Blackers. And she's like, yeah, the Blackers had a daughter, and she died on July 5th. And he's like, oh, shit. And she's like, yeah, that's pretty fucking weird, okay? It can't just be a coincidence. And it turns out their daughter died on July 5th.
Okay.
So she's like, I want to fucking leave this house. Something fucked up is happening here, and I want to fucking leave, and I want to go back to fucking New York. And he's like, no, you can't. We can't. We got to stay here for Lucas. What he needs is stability, especially at this time in his life, And she's like, yeah, okay. Well, I guess not then. Fine. So then the husband is like, I'm going to the city for 2 days to sell the company, so, maybe I should just cancel this trip and just stay with you. And she's like, no. It'll be good. It'll be a good time for, me and him together. Mm-hmm. And he's like, all right. So I guess he's gone then, and we see Kate and Lucas, and they're going to town. And they go to the old town hall, okay? And there's this old lady in there. And she's like, they call me Ms. Judith. I'm the person who sent you the pictures and the records of your house that you just bought. And she's like, oh, okay, because it was all like weird and supernatural that you just got that shit in the mail.
Oh, okay.
And Kate doesn't waste any time. She just starts asking about this secret room. There's a secret room up there, and it's not on the plans. So, can you tell me anything about it? It's weird. There's a window and everything, but, it's not on the blueprints or anything. And then the lady just says, it sounds to me like you have a disappointments room. It's just like, okay, movie, just come on out with it.
All right.
And she's like, what the hell's that? She's like, a disappointments room? Well, here's what it is. And she explains it. It's actually pretty sad when she does, because it's all about, back then in those olden times, when, like, people of prestige would end up with deformed children, or, mentally handicapped or something like that,
Okay.
they would put a secret hidden room in their home, and they would fucking put the kid in there, and the kid would live out the rest of their life in it so that they wouldn't embarrass their family. And she explains that most of the time, they didn't live for very long.
Yeah.
And she's like, some say their spirits stay behind after they've died. And then she's like, so I've been researching disappointment rooms and their effect of having spirits and stuff. And it's just like, what? Did they just seriously say this in the script?
I think that's kind of cool.
I guess.
All right.
But this is all in the same visit, dude. Like, she's been researching disappointments rooms.
Like
Okay?
too convenient, you're saying?
Very much too convenient.
All right, I get you.
Wentworth Miller. Go back to Prison Break. You were awesome in that. So then she's like, actually pretty cool. She makes a cool little reference here. So again, hey, good going, Wentworth Miller. She references fucking Poltergeist. She's like, I think I've been watching too much Poltergeist. And so then they're back home, and the blonde kid, Ben, is there.
Fuck meat.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Can we call him that from now on?
Why not? So Kate and Fuck Me are up on the they're up on the roof looking at the damage. Okay. And she's like, he's like, oh, I think this will take like 6 days to do. She's like, no, it looks more like 2 days. So, this is what I'm going to pay you. This is what you're going to do. And he's like, yeah, okay, well, so you want a cigarette? And she's like, sure. So they sit down, and they're like sharing a smoke. And she brings up her father, who was an old contractor and everything like that. And, so she spent a lot of time on the on job sites and stuff like that. And that's how she knows so much about construction. That's also what led her into becoming an architect. And she talks about how he died and how it fucked her up and stuff. And then we hear Lucas going, Mommy, Mommy. And she looks down at the ladder, and he's trying to climb up the fucking ladder. Okay, she's like, whoa, 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 no. No. Get down off the ladder, and we'll be down there in a second. And then Fuck Meat says, where's his father? And she's like, yeah, he's away on business. And then he goes, must get pretty lonely here at night in bed, curled up all by yourself. And like he's like really over the top with it. And she looks at him. And then she goes, congratulations, you just found the line. And then he's like, yeah, so what now? And she's like, you can back the fuck up. Then later we see her researching old-timey child deformities, and we see all these photos, which I assume are real photos, and they're very sad.
Yeah.
All right. And how people used to shut them away and shit like that from like old-time nobilities, from the 1800s and shit, I don't know. And at the same time this is happening, Lucas is in the other room watching some kids show. And then there's this big loud fucking slam, okay? And she looks around and she doesn't know where it was. And now Lucas is gone. And she's looking for him through the house, and then we see him, and he's upstairs in a hallway. And then, totally like that scene in the movie The Shining, he looks down the end of the hallway, and this girl's just standing there staring at him. Okay? So then we see that they're running together. And Kate follows him, goes up the stairs. She goes into the attic. And then she sees the door to the disappointments room, and it cracks open, and then we just see the little girl's face peeking out. And she starts scratching on the fucking door. Scratching and scratching. And she's just a normal looking little girl, At this point, we're like, well, why was she locked up in this fucking room, right?
Yeah.
And then Kate starts talking to her, and she's like, hey, what's your name? And the little girl goes, Laura. And she's like, Laura, what's going on? And then she just goes, he doesn't want you here. And then she shuts the fucking door. Kate goes and opens it up, looks inside, and there's nobody in there. She props something up against the door so it doesn't shut on her again. And then she goes and looks out the window, and out the window she sees Lucas running around in the yard, chasing his cat, and just playing and shit. And she's like, well, what the fuck? He was just up here, I guess. What led me up here? Obviously, is a little girl. Then she sees across the yard the big black motherfucking dog fucking chasing after Lucas. Lucas doesn't see it yet, but it's coming for him.
Shit.
So she's like, oh, fuck! And she starts fucking running down the stairs to go outside. And then we see that black dog fucking runs Lucas down and just fucking attacks. And is fucking biting him and fucking tearing him to fucking shreds. Okay, and it's pretty violent looking, right? By the time she gets outside, you know he's just going to be a fucking rag doll, okay? So then she gets up to him, and he's fine. And he's just sitting there reading a book. Like, it wasn't real.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all just like a vision or whatever. So she's like all freaked out and stuff. She's like, you know what, let's go inside for lunch. And he's like, no, I need my cat. I need Rascal, or whatever his name is. I need to go and find him. She's like, okay, whoa, we'll go together, you know, because she knows there's fucking ghost dogs outside. And she looks at him. She's like, why don't you go look over there and look up in them trees? And he's like, okay. So then she goes over to this other area and she finds the cat. And the cat is mauled the fuck up. Okay, it's just like, it's mauled to a fucking pulp.
Is it dead?
Oh, what the fuck? Is it dead?
It could be like,
No. Man, maybe it should have. So she sees that, and she hears Lucas coming to join her, and so she like has no choice but to like pick up this giant bloody fucking mess cat and then throw it off into the bushes. Okay, so she's got blood all over her hands, and she has to hide them like in her shirt while they're walking inside. She's like, oh, you know, we'll find him later. So they go inside. She's washing all the blood off of her hands, and then she's walking through the house. She steps on a piece of broken glass. She looks down. It's a piece of the mirror. Okay, one of those two weird mirrors, right? Mm-hmm. So then she gets down, and she's looking at it, and she sees the hole that's missing the piece, and there's some weird markings behind it. So she pulls a couple of more pieces off because it's like slightly shattered, and she sees there's a fucking painting underneath it. So then she pulls all the pieces off. She's like smashing it a little bit, you know, being careful, but she empties it all out, and behind it is this big life-size portrait of Old Man Blacker. Okay. And she's like, what the fuck? She goes and gets a towel and wraps it around her hand and punches the other mirror and, you know, gets all the glass out of it. And it's his wife. And the painting of his wife looked, you know, slightly unfinished. You know, it was weird. Like her face didn't have all of its features. But they didn't really address that. And then we get a close-up of the painting of Mr. Blacker's. His eyes are like staring at her from the painting. So at that point, we get another flashback of Kate lying on the bathroom floor, crying. And remember, they showed that in the beginning of the movie. Then we see that she has a big razor blade, or a straight razor, in her hand. And you're like, oh, so that's what that was in the beginning. It was a flashback to her suicide attempt because her fucking baby died.
yeah.
All right? That's, you know, another reason why they moved to the country. So then it cuts to her husband in New York, and he's actually talking to a therapist. Like, he's not there selling the company. Okay? And he's like, she's seeing things that aren't there, okay? And she's all fucked up again, and I don't know what the fuck to do. And the therapist is like, you know, moving out to the country probably wasn't the best idea, dude, because you guys are all fucking isolated and shit. And, you know, what she needs is not advice. She needs fucking friends, okay? So this Sunday, why don't you guys have some friends over for dinner? And he's like, yeah, okay. Then we cut again to Kate sitting in the same area of the roof as before and sharing a smoke with Fuckmeat. And she's like, hey, you know, I think I found a gravestone out there in the backyard somewhere, and I don't want Lucas to find it. So can you do me a favor and go and dig that shit up and, you know, get rid of it? Okay, whatever's out there. And he's like, you know, she's like, it's probably for a dog, you know, so just get rid of it, please. And he's like, yeah, okay. And then he's like, I hope he appreciates all this. And she's like, what? And he's like, I said, I hope he appreciates everything you're doing, you know, with this house and everything, and, you know, so that you guys can have your parties and shit. And he seems like he resents her a little bit. And she's just like, what the fuck? So then she looks at him, and she realizes that he's like heading towards being inappropriate with her.
Yeah.
And she's like, what would your girlfriend think of you, you know, sharing a smoke with me up here? He's like, I don't have one. He starts coming on to her again and shit like that. So then it just cuts away, and we see the bathroom cabinet, and she's looking into it, and then she closes it, and in the mirror behind her is, ba-ba-bum, her husband. He's back home. She's like, what the fuck are you doing? You know, I thought you were gone till tomorrow. And he's like, well, I was, but then, you know, I wanted to come home and be with my awesome wife. So, by the way, are we taking our meds? And she's like, nope. And he's like, well, that's probably not the best idea. And she's like, well, they make me feel fuzzy. I hate this shit. Anyway, then it shows her ripping the fucking paintings out of that area by the stairs. And she takes them outside, tears them all up, and burns them.
Nice.
Then we get a cut to Ms. Judith, the old lady from the town hall. and she's looking through newspapers and about all these murders, okay, that apparently happened in that house before Kate moved in. So I guess there was another family that they all died or something like that. And the newspaper had said, "Did a spirit kill them?" You know, like that would ever be in a fucking newspaper.
Yeah.
So they're getting ready to have company for dinner, okay? And the husband has invited a couple of their friends from New York. And they're on the phone. They're like, "Yeah, we should be there by 5, blah, blah, blah." And then it cuts to Ben, and he's out in the woods, and he finds the gravestone. Fuck Meat finds the gravestone. So we got a series of jump cuts that happens between these 3 different events. 1 is the dinner with the friends. 2 is Fuck Meat finding the gravestone. And also Kate, up in her room or whatever. And so the guy's in there cooking dinner with the 2 friends, and they're all trying the food and shit like that. And he's trying to entertain them and stuff. Like, "Oh, she'll be down in a minute." Shows her. She's upstairs just like fucking crying, and she's all sad and shit. Then we see Fuck Meat starts digging at this gravestone, and he finds a fucking coffin inside of it.
Oh, jeez.
And then we see Kate just like run through the house and fucking leave the house, okay? And the friends are like, "What?" Like they hadn't even seen her yet, and she just fucking left and got in a car and drove off. Okay, and then we see Fuck Meat is like opening up the coffin, and he opens it up, and yep, there's a little girl's bones in there.
Oh.
And then right behind him is old Judge Blacker with like a fucking sledgehammer or something, and just swings it and fucking kills him. Okay, got killed by the ghost. So then the husband and the 2 friends are sitting there, and they've already finished dinner, and it's like getting dark and stuff, and they're like, "Okay, well, maybe we should just clean up and, I guess leave." And then Kate comes home, and she's drunk as fuck. And she's like, "Excuse me. I'm so sorry. Okay, we can go ahead and get started now. I'm sorry, it really took me a long time to find what I was after in town because it's such a small town, And like, she's making a fucking fool of herself and shit and talking about her husband. And she's like, "Oh yeah, David, he fucks everything up, Actually, I guess not. I guess it's me who fucks everything up. He's perfect. Yeah, he made this beautiful dinner. Your game hens, how were they? I, on the other hand, I can fuck up waffles very easily." Okay? And he's like, "You're drunk. Stop this. You're embarrassing us." And she's like, "Fuck you. I'm all fucked up and shit. But, I guess fixing this house is just gonna make it all better for me, isn't it, David?" And he's like, "Oh, shit." She starts fucking yelling at everybody, and they're like, "Maybe we should go." And she's like, "Oh, no, stay. You gotta stay. You can't leave until we've had dessert." And she gets up, and she goes into the kitchen, and then she comes out with a fucking birthday cake with 1 candle out of it.
Oh.
And you're like, "Oh, shit, man." That's what she had gone into town for. Like, that's why the lady was like, "Why don't you have company over this Sunday, to distract her," because it was the anniversary of their daughter's death.
Mm.
So as soon as you see the cake, you're like, "Oh, shit. This is fucking sad, dude." And she's like, "Oh, that's what you invited them here for, right? This is her birthday party." And he's like, "You know what? This is bullshit. You guys need to just leave, and you and me will talk about this." And she has the knife in her hand to cut the cake. She's waving it around at him because she's drunk. And she's like, No, we're going to have this fucking party, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, "You get a hold of yourself." And then she just starts fucking throwing shit at him, never throws the knife or anything. And she like flips the cake like a fucking Monopoly board. She fucking goes nuts. She's throwing all sorts of shit. And she just collapses on the floor, and she's like, I can't, man. I can't pretend to be happy anymore. This is fucking bullshit." And she looks at him. She's like, "Only 3 months, man. 3 months, David. 90 days, okay? That's all the time she had." So you're like, "Oh, she was 3 months old when she died." And she's like, "That's all the time she had before she realized that she wanted no part of me, okay? And she just stopped breathing." And you're like, "Oh, man, this sucks."
Yeah.
She's totally blaming herself and everything like that, There's obviously SIDS,
Uh-huh.
And she's like, I'm so sorry. And then she leaves. She runs out the house. He's chasing after her, but, then, so the friends are there or whatever. And she runs out to where she found the grave, okay? And she looks down into the gravestone, or into the coffin, and she sees the bones, and she looks at the skull of this little girl. And yep, it's all fucking weird and deformed. It's like got this big, huge growth on it, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then she turns around. She says, she's like, "Oh, you poor thing out here by yourself." She's like losing her mind. And then she looks up and finds fuck meat hanging from the tree by the neck. So he's all strung up. And then she looks over at the window at the top of the house, and the light turns on. And then we see that the paintings are back in place. And she's running up to the attic, and she's calling her son's name, Lucas, Lucas. And then the disappointment room's door opens up, and the fucking dog attacks her. Okay, it's rah, 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 rah. It's fucking barking at her and shit. And he doesn't really attack her, but he's right there. He's not letting her walk in. So then she gets a vision of what's happening in the room, and there's Old Man Blacker and his wife, and they're in there with their daughter, okay? And the wife is feeding the daughter, and Mr. Blacker is, he's behind them, and he's just like fucking staring down at them with all this disdain, and he's just, he's totally embarrassed. He hates this. And then we see down in his hand, and he's holding a big hammer. And he's like, that's it. We've allowed this curse to linger too long. And then the wife's like, no, 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 trying to stop him. And he pushes his wife down to the floor. She bumps her head and shit. And then he just fucking wails that hammer down onto his daughter's head. And this time in the vision, we see what the daughter really looks like. She's not just some pretty little girl like Kate's been chasing around. She's got this huge growth on her head. And, it's really sad looking. And he fucking kills his daughter right there. And then he looks up at Kate. And he walks up to her. And he gets all up in her face. And he's not all screaming or anything. He just gets up there and he's like, you are a miserable mother. You failed. And now you're going to fail again. First a daughter and now a dead son. And she's like, no. And then he runs out of the door and he's like, Amos. And then the fucking dog just starts fucking attacking Kate. So she's trying to fight the dog off, and Blacker is walking down the hallway and he finds Lucas's bedroom where Lucas is sleeping. Okay, and he picks up a pillow and he's walking towards him and he starts smothering him with the pillow. Like, this fucking ghost is killing her son. So then Kate's fighting the dog and she fucking grabs its head and just fucking breaks its neck. It was a pretty cool little scene. So then she picks up that hammer and then runs down the hallway. And she finds Blacker in her son's room and then just immediately fucking hits him in the head. And it fucking gets all bloody and shit. And then she just starts beating this motherfucker in the head with this hammer. Over and over and fucking over. And they keep fucking showing it. Okay? And his head just like keeps disintegrating into nothing. And it was really fucking gory and fucked up, right? And then the dad runs into the house. And because he was outside looking for her. He comes into the room and he just sees feathers flying in the air from the pillows that are getting all fucked up. And then there's Kate standing there over their son's bed with a fucking hammer in the air. Yeah. Okay? And no Blacker anywhere. So it's like, holy shit, she was just beating her son in the fucking head. Oh my God. And then the kid sits up and he's like, oh, he's all scared. Like she was just hitting the pillow. That's why all the feathers
she would
are
end
flying.
up be hitting her husband. But
oh, really?
All right.
Yeah, I thought she was hitting the kid. And and after how gory they made her hitting the ghost, I was like, well, I guess all bets are off because like that's a pretty serious little scene there.
Yeah.
A little uncharacteristic for what we've seen so far. So the dad takes the kid and he runs out of the room. Kate runs out to the woods to look for fuck meat and finds that he's not there. He's not hanging from the tree anymore. So she just like falls down to the ground. She's back in the house and she's like, I can't tell what's real anymore. I can't. I have no idea what the fuck's going on. I almost killed him. And she starts crying. And then she goes, I killed Catherine. That was the name of their baby. And then we get a flashback to the baby's death. And it wasn't fucking Sid's.
Oh.
So we see Kate at home with her newborn baby. And the baby will not fucking stop crying, okay? And we see a couple of different scenes of this happening. Like that baby's been crying all fucking day. And Kate is all like exasperated and shit like that. She doesn't know what the fuck to do. And then it just cuts to Kate waking up on her bed. And she's like, oh God, I just woke up. What the fuck's going on? And then she like realizes what's happening. She fucking gets up. And they show it for a quick little second there. And she had passed out or fallen asleep and fucking rolled on top of the baby. And that's how the baby smothered to death. Yeah, man. It was fucking sad. So then we cut back to her on the floor with her husband. And she, she's like, I killed her. And he's like, no, that was an accident. And you know it. Okay? And they're holding each other on the floor. And he's like, you know what? Okay, we need to get back home. No more running away. So then we see them getting ready to move or leave anyway. And we see him pulling using a drill and taking the door off its hinges up in the attic. like opening it up and making sure that it can't ever shut again. And then we also see a hand going down into the drain that was in the room and picking up a little toy that the little girl was holding in the vision when she died. And when he hit her with the hammer, the toy like went down the drain.
Yeah.
As it, bounced across the room. So then they're getting in the car and they're leaving. And they're driving away, and Kate looks back at the window, and in the window, it's old man Blacker fucking staring at her. Still in the house, So she didn't kill him with the hammer or whatever. And you look down at her hands, and she's holding the toy that the little girl dropped in the drain. And then the camera is in the disappointments room. Remember, now there's no one in the house or anything. It's just lingering there. You hear some creepy noise and shit like that, and then the camera pulls back out of the doorway, and then the door slams shut. Like it's back on the hinges.
Yeah.
And then the credits roll, and that's it.
Oh, God.
Yeah. What do you think of that?
What the hell?
Yeah, it's not enough, too much heart, not enough head.
Yep. I
Yeah.
agree.
See, the B story takes over. The story has an A story and a B story. The A story is usually the head story, where shit has to happen. And the B story is usually, in this instance, she has to realize and come to terms with what really happened with the death of her daughter.
Yeah.
And, make her realize it. But nothing happened in the A story, it seemed like.
You're right. Yeah. So it's like the A story. Was it all in her head? Did any of it happen at all,
Yeah.
That's the whole thing. Even that contractor kid, fuck meat. He did not necessarily even exist. It's fucking weird.
All right.
Very confusing ending. And it's like her beating the ghost in the head was supposed to be like the big climax, but then the big reveal of the movie was, it was her who killed her daughter. And then it's just like, we're leaving, movie's over.
They left their own movie.
They didn't fucking deal with anything. They just fucking left. Fuck this.
Characters just left.
That's how they solved it. Why don't we just go home?
All right. Well, good job, Brian.
Yeah, thanks. There you have it.
I
The
like your
disappointments
version.
room.
I like your version better.
Thanks.
All right. You guys ready for this game?
Fuck yeah.
All right. You guys are listening out there. You've been thinking about your own version, hopefully. Who wants to go first?
From here to there on Movies with Ron.
All right, I'll go first. The actor I chose was, Matthew McConaughey.
Okay.
All right. So let's start with movie A, which is Interstellar.
All right.
All right. So what happened in Interstellar? His whole purpose was he had to find Earth was dying, and he had to find a new replacement for Earth.
Yeah.
Right. So he's with these astronauts, and eventually they find the replacement for Earth. And it turns out Anne Hathaway goes there. She's by herself. She starts living, trying to survive. And Matthew McConaughey has to go through that library wormhole thing.
Yeah.
And he ends up on the vessel that all of the survivors from Earth are traveling to that new planet, right?
Mm-hmm.
So eventually Matthew McConaughey takes a ship from the vessel and goes to see Anne Hathaway because it turns out that they're in love. So he goes to her, and that's where that movie ends. And so it turns out that everyone goes to that new Earth, right?
Yeah.
But what happens, of course, we're going to have to carry some stuff from the original Earth. So as we colonize, which happens a lot faster because it's the future and everyone knows how to do that shit, create an infrastructure and organize and build buildings and stuff and roads.
Yeah.
And you'll take the same names from things. So you'll have an America and you'll have a London, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So they build this new civilization on Earth, right? And fucking Matthew.
They named it Earth in honor of Earth.
Yeah. So Matthew McConaughey is happy in his life with Anne Hathaway. Maybe they have some kids and shit. And then in Great Britain, the new Great Britain, this little kid named Christian Bale, his mom is digging underground. And he goes underground, this stupid little Christian Bale kid, and wakes up what on this new Earth is now filled with dragons. And he wakes them up.
All
right? And all these dragons come out of this new Earth, and they burn everything.
Yeah.
Right after they rebuilt Earth, because the original one was dying. And all these dragons came out and just burned everything because of Christian fucking Bale. Right? And they kill Anne Hathaway and her children, and fucking Matthew McConaughey in New America. He's like, I made this new fucking planet, man.
Yeah, damn it.
What the fuck? So he devotes his life to killing the dragons.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he gets his band of mercenaries, and they're killing dragons, and eventually they go to the Great Britain and
Go to the Great Britain.
and the movie is Reign of Fire.
Fuck yeah. I like that. Good one, man.
All right.
Hell yeah.
All right.
I loved him in that movie with that shaved head and that big bushy beard.
And Christian Bale was a fucking wimp.
Oh, man. He was a badass up until his fucking death. Oh, I'm talking about Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was. Yeah. Christian Bale was a wimp in that movie.
Yeah. All right, Rick, you want to go?
Yeah, good one, man. All right, Rick, what you got?
All right, here's what I got. My actor is Bruce Willis.
Hell yeah.
And the A movie is going to be Die Hard. John McClane.
All right.
And after the Nakatomi incident, certain people realized that he was kind of a badass and he knew how to handle shit. Knew how to handle terrorists.
Yeah.
And all that shit going on. So he gets contacted by the government, by a government agency, and they start asking him if he would do work for them.
Yeah.
John McClane, because he's such a badass and he's just happens to be his niche, just dealing with shit.
Yeah.
That's his thing. He's a little apprehensive about it at first, and he starts taking on some of the jobs, for some extra money, because he's got to take care of his kids.
Sure.
His kids and his wife. He goes on a couple of missions, but his home life starts to fail, and things start to get, his wife wants to leave him, and, he's alienated with his kids. And so he just kind of becomes a loose cannon and starts becoming a bit of a drunk, and he went back and moved back to New York.
Yeah.
But then, after everything's said and done, he decides to retire. Retire as being a cop, a New York cop, and also an agent, for the government, dealing with more terrorists abroad. And when he retires, the government gives him pretty much an end letter or an end order. It's like, you can't retire as John McClane. All right, you have to be kind of a nobody, so no one can find you and try and track you down and track us down in that instance. So John McClane, he finds a house in the suburbs and he retires and he knows nobody, not even the people that he knew when he was doing Black Ops missions. Completely alone, and he retires. John McClane retires as his alias, Frank Moses. And the only person he has to talk to is his caseworker for his retirement fund and whatnot. Sarah Ross. And the entire film, it winds up leading into movie B, Red.
Okay.
In which
All
he finds Sarah and he finally finds love in his life. John
Yeah.
McClane.
Sweet.
And he teams up with John Malkovich and Morgan Freeman. And...
Hell
All
yeah.
right.
All of his old Black Ops buddies.
Okay.
All right. Pretty good.
Nice job.
Thank you.
Oh, is it my turn?
Yeah. What you got for us?
All right. My actor is Corey Feldman
Nice.
from the 80s. Okay. So my movie A is The Goonies.
Okay.
Okay. So the events of The Goonies happen. They're on the beach. They're going to be able to save all their houses because they found all the jewels, right?
Uh-huh.
So mean old Mr. Perkins, he can't take their land and their houses anymore to build a golf course. So after The Goonies, Mouth was his name in that movie. He goes back to Mikey's house. You guys remember Mikey? He was Sean Astin.
Yeah. Okay.
Goes back to Mikey's house with Mikey and Rosalita, the non-English speaking housekeeper from that movie, who was told to care for them while Mikey's parents handled all the banking bullshit.
Yeah.
Okay, which actually went on for for 2 or 3 days because all the parents ended up actually fighting over shares of the gems that the kids found. Okay. So Mikey and Mouth are up in that same attic where they found One-Eyed Willie's map. Okay. And while they're alone together, Mouth confides in Mikey what his wish was that he took back in the wishing well. Remember that scene where he's like, I'm taking this one back. This one's mine. Okay? I'm taking them all back. All right? And his wish was to kill Mr. Perkins. Okay? But not only because of like the housing takeover bullshit, to build the golf course, but also because a year ago he walked in on his mom blowing Mr. Perkins. Okay? Who then just laughed and called their whole family pathetic trash, especially his worthless whore mom.
Ouch.
So they're sitting there, and Mikey's like, Jesus, man, what the fuck? Right then, Esmeralda walks in and in perfect fucking English says, all right, get up, you pieces of shit. All right? And she holds him at gunpoint, okay? And then she takes him downstairs, all right, where they find 2 masked men who then club them unconscious. Okay, they awake, all right, locked in a fucking crate. Okay,
Yeah.
In the crate with them is just a bunch of granola bars and like cans of Pepsi. All right, they're in there for 4 days. They can tell that the crate is on a truck bound for God knows where, right? And all their screams, whenever it stops for gas, they just go unheard. So when the box is finally opened up 4 days later, the smell of piss and shit is horrendous. Okay? And the boys are dragged out, okay? And they're thrown on the floor. And they look up and they see the 2 masked men. And then they're dragged down into a fucking cellar and they're chained up to the wall, okay? And then on the walls, there's like graffiti and marks and messages written by the hundreds of boys that have been chained in there before.
Oh, God.
All right? Yeah. Okay, something fucked up happened, and they have been sold into the sex trade. Okay, so then the boys are crying, right? They're like, "Where are we? Why are you doing this?" And then a voice just says, "You're home. Well, your new home anyway." And Esmeralda steps into the room, okay, and she says, "Until I can find a buyer for you 2 little bastards." Now shut up and don't make me cut your fucking head off. Okay. Later that night, 2 more boys are added. One of whom looks very, very sick. Okay, the other boy is crying and he's talking in Spanish. Right now, remember, Mouth spoke a little Spanish in the Goonies. Okay, and Mikey says, "What's he saying? What's he saying?" And Mouth says, "He says he wants to go home." All right, and speaking with the boy, Mouth finds out that the boy was stolen from his bed that very night and then brought here. Mouth says, "Dude, okay, so where are we? What town are we in?" And the boy says, "Tijuana." And now they're in Mexico. A day or 2 later, Esmeralda brings in some rich white guy, right? You know what? Let me back up. They're wearing blindfolds. Okay.
All right.
So they can't see that the boy's very sick, but they can hear it. All right. And Esmeralda brings in this rich white guy to choose a boy, okay? And he's really creepy sounding and shit. And Esmeralda says, "See anything you like?" And the man says, "That one." Okay? And he points to the sick kid in the corner. And Esmeralda says, 5,000. Okay? The man says, "I want to try before I buy." Okay? And the boy just gets dragged out of the cellar.
Good Lord.
Upstairs. Okay, music begins to play. All right? And the sound of multiple grown men fucking screaming is now heard, and there's gunfire, okay? And it's all fucking chaos happening upstairs, right? And then the chaos fucking dies down, and the music just screeches to a fucking halt, all right? And then the sick kid walks back into the cellar, pulls the blindfolds off of the boys, all right? They look up to see him totally covered in blood and smiling, and he's got yellow eyes, all right? And they're like, "What the fuck?" And he's like, "Let's go, brothers." He breaks their chains, with his hands, and he says, "We're done here." And then they go upstairs and they pass the dead rich guy, who they now see is Mr. Perkins. Okay. The 2 masked men have been torn apart and are all over the room. All right. Esmeralda is now petrified with fear, and she's just huddled in the corner, just fucking shaking. And the yellow-eyed boy hands Mikey the gun, and he points at Esmeralda. Mikey can't do it. He can't shoot her, and he just starts crying. The Mexican boy who was talking to him in Spanish then tries to run for the door, but the monster boy just fucking grabs him and bites his fucking throat out. Okay? The other two boys are crying and they piss their pants, and then the monster boy points at Esmeralda and then looks at Mikey and says, "Now." And Mikey looks at Esmeralda and then back at Mouth, and he says, "Why, Mouth? Why?" And then he just puts the gun to his own head and fires. Okay? Mouth falls to his fucking knees crying. You know, his best friend just died. All right? The monster boy now hands him the gun, and he says, "Now," pointing at Esmeralda. Mouth shoots the boy, okay? Shoots him a couple of times. Fucking does nothing, right?
Uh-huh.
Then the boy fucking roars at him with a fucking mouthful of fangs and screams, "No!" And Mouth just fucking shoots Esmeralda right in the face. Fucking kills her. Then he goes over to Mikey's body and he's crying. He's crying for his best friend. You know, he looks up at the monster boy and he says, "Are you going to kill me now?" And the boy says, "Not if you join me, brother." And Mouth is crying. He's just fucking crying. He's like, "I'll kill you for this. I'll kill you for this, you fucking monster. I fucking swear it." And then the boy just says, "Well, I'll be waiting." So then, time goes by, and Mouth lives in the fucking streets in fucking Mexico, okay? And he just spends all of his time looking for this fucking vampire, right? And he spends years, okay? And then he's friends with a whole bunch of other street rats and shit. And he eventually becomes best friends with another one, okay? And then confiding eventually in his now best friend, whose name is Alan, okay, about what happened to him as a child. Alan then replies, "I've heard stories about a place called Santa Carla." Which then leads into movie B, The Lost Boys.
Wow.
Fucking Frog Brothers.
Yep.
All right.
There you go.
Not bad.
You like that one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Got a little worried there for them boys.
I wasn't sure where you were taking that. All right.
Well, there you go. From here to there on Movies with Ron. Let us know what you think, guys.
Yeah, thanks for listening. All right. It's been fun. Y'all take care now.
All right. Love you.
Bye.
Movies with Ron.